Hey guys, welcome back. All right, lesson 103. This one's going to be a pretty short lesson. We're just talking about powers of negative numbers and dividing terms. Okay, so a few examples, but nothing too crazy. And really, it's mostly stuff that y'all have talked about before. So we're just going to kind of blow through this one, try and go pretty quick, and we'll just see how it goes. All right, so let me pull up the first little visual that I have here for us on this one. Okay, so let's look at this little multiplication problem here. Remember, when all of our parentheses are squished together, that's meaning multiply. Okay, so traditionally, we multiply from left to right. Okay, everybody knows that because that's part of our order of operations. Okay, so we could multiply, we could start here with -2, -3, and -4. And we would say, okay, well, that's going to be a +12. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to get you to see how we get, like, whenever we have lots of positives and negatives, how we can prevent from getting confused with all of this, okay? And then in a minute, I'm going to show you a little trick. All right, but for now, we're just going to go left to right like we normally do. So now remember, once you do one piece, then you still write everything else that's left, okay? All right, so next, we're going to put these two guys together. So +12 times +5 is going to be +60. Positive times positive is always positive, okay? So then times -2 times +3. Now +60 times -2 is -120. -120 times +3. Okay, so then we're left, our last thing is a negative times a positive. That's going to be a -360. So if we go back, we saw we were multiplying negative times positive times negative times positive, and that gave us a -360. There's kind of a lot of negatives and positives there, so it's kind of hard to see any patterns. So let's look at something that can help us to see a pattern, okay? Because you could do it this way. You could always just go left to right, one piece at a time, and you will always get to the right answer, but you have to be super duper careful. So this pattern is just going to kind of help you to see how you can also double check yourself. So let's look at, let me pull it up. Here we go. All right, so now we're going to look at what happens when we start multiplying multiples of -1. So the first one we see -1 just equals -1, obviously. So one of them is just 1. The next one we see multiplying 2 negatives gives me a positive, okay? Then we see multiplying 3 negatives, -1 times -1 times -1 gives me a -1. 4 gives me a positive, 5 gives me a negative. So if we start to think about, like, okay, what kind of pattern are we seeing here? We could say, well, I see there's one number being multiplied here, there's 2 being multiplied here, 3 being multiplied here, 4 being multiplied here, and 5 being multiplied here. So I could also say that, well, wait a second, I know 1 is an odd number, 3 is an odd number, and 5 is an odd number, and those all just so happen to be negative. So we could look at even and see if that's consistent. And we see that all of the even numbers, all the ones where we're multiplying an even amount of terms, gives me a positive result. So I hope you see where I'm going with this. I'm trying to show you that when there is an even number of negative factors, the product is positive. So when we multiply 2 negatives together, we're going to get a positive. When we multiply 4 negatives together, we're going to get a positive. When we multiply 6 negatives together, we're going to get a positive, and so on. When there is an odd number of negative factors, the product is negative. So when I multiply 1 negative, product is negative. When I multiply 3 negatives together, product is negative. When I multiply 5 negatives together, product is negative. Notice it doesn't say anything about the positive numbers that are being multiplied. They don't matter. All that you look at is how many negative numbers are a part of the multiplication. The positive numbers, multiplying by positive numbers, is not going to change anything. What changes things is multiplying by a negative number. So you want to count how many negative numbers you're multiplying by, and if there's an odd number of them, your answer is going to be negative. If there's an even number of them, your answer is going to be positive. So let's see what that looks like when we play it out a little bit. Let me get my example open here. All right, so if we want to find the product here of +3 times +4 times -5 times -2 times -3. All right, so we could just go left to right, but already I want you to look. There are 3 negative numbers. So what do you think the answer is going to be? Positive or negative? I know you said negative. You're so smart. Okay, so let's actually multiply this out real quick just so that we can kind of follow through and see how it ends up. So to find the product, we would multiply here. 3 times 4 is 12. So then we're going to multiply by negative 5. My negatives are not working for some reason. They look funny. I don't know why. Sorry, my negatives look weird. All right, then that 12 times negative 5 is going to give me negative 60. There we go. Now it's looking better. Then times negative 2, negative 3. So I could do negative 60 times negative 2 is going to be positive 120. Positive 120 times negative 3. You guessed it. That's going to be negative 360. And we said from the beginning we thought our answer was going to be negative, and we were correct. Awesome. All right, so let's look at another one. Next example. Okay, so now we're going to talk about dividing terms, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the example so that you guys can see that. Okay, so when we are dividing terms, we want to expand both the top and the bottom and then cancel it. Well, what do you mean by expand, Miss Gutierrez? I mean, if you've got a number like 12, you want to prime factor that number. So, or use prime factorization. So I know that 12, I could come over here, right? And I could do 12 divided by 2 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. So there's your prime factors. Remember, the outside numbers are always your prime factors. So I could break that down into 2 times 3 times x to the third, remember, means x times x times x. It means to multiply it by itself 3 times. Then I've just got 1y, so times y, and then 2 z's. So it's z squared, so it's times z, all over 3, which 3 is already a prime number, so I don't have to factor that one. You're welcome. Merry Christmas. And then x squared, which is just going to be x times 1y. Now, anywhere that we have 2 things that are the same on top and the bottom, so 3 and 3, we get to slash them out. X and X, slash them out. X and X, slash them out. Y and Y, slash them out. Now, let's figure out what's left. Nothing's left on the bottom, so that's nice. When there's nothing left on the bottom, we don't have to have a bottom anymore. When there's nothing left on the top, you have to leave a 1 on the top, just FYI. So let's go to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. We only have 1 x left. No y's, but we still have our z squared because there was no z's on the bottom to cancel out. So then once you divide it, what you're left with is your result. That's your answer. Okay, so let's try. I think I've got one more of these on here. Let's see. Let's try one more. Yes, here we go. Okay, so same process. We are going to break it down. 10 can break down into 2 and 5 times a to the third. So remember, that means a times a times a. I don't know why it doesn't like to make dots sometimes. Times b times c times struggling. Okay, c. All right, and then 8 could break down into 2 times 4 times a times b squared is going to be 2b's. B times b. There is an easier way to do this, by the way, but for now we're doing it this way because this is how they want us to start out doing it. And it's a good method for getting started when you're learning this process. So just bear with it. We're going to cancel all the places that we can. So all the places that are the same on the top and the bottom, I'm canceling them out. So now I'm left with a 5 on top. Let's see, all my a's canceled on the bottom, so I can't cancel any more of those top a's. My b's are gone. There's b left on the bottom, nothing to cancel with it on top, and no more c's on the bottom to cancel with that c on the top. So let's put together what we've got left. We still have a 5 on top. We still have 2 a's on top, so that's a squared. And we still have a c. So 5a squared c is what's left on top. We still have a 4 on the bottom and a b, and that's it. So that would be our answer. All right, so let's just review real quick. You've got two concepts here, powers of negative numbers. So when you multiply an odd number of negatives, your answer is going to be negative. When you multiply an even number of negatives, your answer is going to be positive. Just as a quick review on that. And then here, when you're dividing these terms, you just want to expand it out, okay? So to divide, you want to expand it out and then cancel what you can cancel. And then what's left is your answer. All right, happy homework, guys.